Hey y'all, let's talk about how to sew with knits on your home sewing machine. Not everybody has a serger, many of us don't, and so let's talk about ways that your machine might best handle knit fabric as we're making a t-shirt together. Now I'm going to be sending you a copy of this chart. It's actually 2 pages, but it outlines some methods that you could try based on what stitches are available on your machine. So I'm going to walk you through those if you want to go ahead and do this part all on your own instead of figuring this out in class. Now I'm going to emphasize that these methods are for sewing straight seams, not necessarily for sewing your hemlines, hemming up the bottom of your shirt or your sleeves, or putting in a neckband. This is more about sewing together your shoulders and your side seam in a way that gives a little bit, and so that your seams won't pop. Because if you were to use a straight stitch and all-purpose thread to put together a t-shirt, then you would find out that those seams that should give and stretch a little when you put the shirt on are actually not going to do that. A straight stitch won't allow you to do that unless you make certain adjustments. So that's what we're going to figure out. Is your thread going to work, and are of the stitches that you have available on your machine, what stitch is going to be the best? And also, what other adjustments do we need to make? For example, you're going to need to put a ballpoint needle into your machine so that you don't poke holes in your fabric. I've made this a chart where you can write your own little notes, and I would encourage you to try at least several of these options to figure out what's going to be the absolute best way to sew knits to get the results that you are hoping for from your machine. So you can grab your paper and sew along with me. You're going to need a double layer of knit fabric. So for example, since we're working with jersey, I have this fabric here that is a jersey. It stretches this way and it stretches this way, which is what we're looking for. You're going to get different results if your fabric only stretches in one direction. So you more than likely have a fabric for your t-shirt that stretches in 2 directions. So when you choose this scrap to play around on, it also needs to stretch in 2 directions. It needs to be about the same weight. You don't want a very light tissue knit to practice on, and you also don't want a sweater knit if you're not sewing on sweater knit. So something very similar, ideally a scrap of what you plan to sew your t-shirt with. And as I say, it needs to be a double layer. So I'm going to cut mine or fold it over so that I actually have 2 layers here going through the machine to give me a better idea of how my machine is going to do when I actually put my pieces together. So go ahead and grab that. And so, grab that, and then let's just give this a try. Okay, option number 1, it says lightning bolt stitch or stretch stitch. It's going to look like this, a little different than a zigzag. You're going to use all-purpose thread and a ballpoint or stretch needle. My note to you is that it's especially good for light to medium weight fabrics, this particular stitch. So on my machine, I have these options here. All right, are you seeing the lightning bolt stitch? Okay, yes, number 14. Where are we? Right there. That is my stitch I'm going for. So I'm going to set my machine to do that. Too far. There we go. 14. Okay, now I'm good to go. Now mine is preset. It's telling me that that's what this is telling me like the foot that I need to use, for example. And the other things like the width and the length are preset for me right here. If I go in here, I can see that it's telling me that it wants a 1 for my width and a 2.5 for the length of my stitch. It's not gonna let me change it. So I'm happy with that. Let's see how this works on my fabric. Okay, there's my 2 layers. Put them right there. Ooh. Let's get that under. And this is a rather slow stitch. Don't force that fabric. Okay, maybe I catch both those layers. Okay. Now I'm not going to back stitch at the end of that, partly because my machine won't let me. It does not go backwards in that stitch for me. And so that leads me to think that that stitch is not really going to pull apart anyway. So I'm not going to stress about that. All right, let's pull this out and take a look at that. Okay, so I still have stretch. So that's a great option for me. I do think that some of those little puckers are going to relax after I steam it with an iron. So I'm not too worried about that. All right, so if I want to make some notes about this, I would say on my paper, I feel like this is a good option. Here, I might make a note like that. Okay, the second choice here is a triple stretch or straight stretch stitch. And you can see it looks like it's kind of like a, well, like a triple stitch 3 together. That's what it looks like on your, your little stitch ID symbol. I'm going to use the same type of thread, all-purpose thread, and the same type of needle. Now, my note to you is that it's especially good for medium to heavyweight fabrics. I'd probably call this medium. So I'm going to switch over to that, and I'm going to see how I like that. Okay, for me, that is 5. Get back. Okay, and I'm ready to go. Give myself some room. I didn't have to change my needle or anything. Now again, this stitch is just inching along. I'm not gonna force it. I'm not gonna pull. I'm using light hands, light pressure here. I'm not gonna use a lot of pressure even on my foot pedal. I'm gonna be kind of going at like kind of a medium speed here, because if I go too fast, sometimes the machine doesn't like it and you can end up causing a little too much pressure on your top thread, and it might pop. Actually, had that happen. So go nice and slow, be patient with your machine for best results. Okay, I think it's still going here. All right, sounds good. Okay, let's pull that up. I'm not going to back stitch there either. So many threads. I don't think I'm going to have a problem with it unraveling. Let's take a closer look at that. Okay. And well, this, let's see. Now it looks actually a little bit straighter and flatter, and it gives really well too. So that's an option. Why might I choose that over the first one? Well, if I felt like it laid flatter, I might choose it. Let's look at the back. I think it uses a lot of thread, because you're going back and forth and back and forth. I don't know that, I don't know, I could probably be convinced to use that. It feels secure. So that's an option. Both of these are doing great on my fabric. Okay, next option. Okay, these are available on like a little bit more expensive machines, so it's possible you don't have that. If you've got a very simple machine, that's fine. Then you probably do have a zigzag stitch. Now, zigzag stitch is not one of my top choices for you for sewing with knits, but it can be done. And to do it, I'm suggesting that you narrow your width and do a more like medium length. Again, same needle, ballpoint or stretch. And we're stitching along the seam line, although you've used zigzag stitches along the edge of the fabric to control fraying. That's not what we're using it for here. So you're going to come in from the edge and use it like a as a seam to stitch it together. All right, let's see here. Go ahead and put my presser foot down. I'm going to be changing my stitch setting, so I'm going to go, oops, I'm going to go back. This, for me, a number 6. Now I can choose, you can't see this so well, that's all right. I'm going to tell you. Okay, so 5 is a very wide zigzag. Now I don't want a very wide zigzag. Okay, come to focus. There we go. I don't want that super wide zigzag. I want a narrow zigzag. I'm going to try a 1 or a 1.5. And my length, I want my length to be kind of medium. So I'm going to, let's just try this. I'm trying a 1.5 in width and a 2.5 in length. And I want to see how that cooperates with my fabric. Okay, so I got my threads here. Gonna get them out of the way, make sure they're nice and long. Okay, I think I'm good here. Let's get started. Okay, I'm definitely moving along a little faster here. I like to end with my needle down. Okay, so yeah, narrow. It's a narrow zigzag. Okay, it's fairly narrow. All right, let's see what happens. Okay. Ooh, look, I skipped a stitch. It seems that I did. Could be that my needle doesn't like this fabric. All right, let's see how it stretches. Okay, it does stretch. So it might not have the appearance that you are going for, but you know, it depending on what your expectation is. You may not love the look of a zigzag on your seam, but I mean, it's not bad. It's given. Now I do think it could give less than a stretch stitch. I mean, that lightning bolt stitch gives a lot. Yeah, I don't feel like the zigzag stretches quite as much, but you really don't need a super stretchy seam on a t-shirt because you're going to have a few, you know, a little bit of ease, which means like a little extra room in your shirt. And so it's not meant to be leggings where it's super tight and the seams have to give a lot. So I feel like your zigzag's going to work fine on this kind of loose, more loose fitting t-shirt. So that's an option. That's how I would do it. Okay, so that was option 3. Option 4 says overlock stitch. Now I'm excited to show you this one if you have this option. This is made to like mimic a serger. You see how this basically a line, a vertical line here of stitching, And then to the right, you have these sort of overcasting zigzag stitches. So you would line this up, these straight stitches along your seam line, and then you would have this zigzag action to the right of it. Now you can tell this is going to be a slow stitch. And when you are done, you would come along here and trim that edge right up next to the right-hand side of your stitching. So it would have a similar effect as using a serger. Okay, let me see. Now, I may want to end up cutting that just to kind of show you. So let's put that down, and for me, that stitch is going to be number 8. I'm going to go find my number 8. Okay. All right. I'm ready to go. Let's see how this works. Pretty cool. Okay. All right. Let's pull that out. Look at that. Okay. Oh, look at that. So it does give. And actually, it's not that wavy or anything. Okay, so then the idea would be that you'd find your edge here. Let's forget that. I'm going to cut like right along. Like kind of close. Ooh, I popped it. I mean, I'm trying to kind of get there close. You get the idea, right? So this is, now I'm cutting it as if like this, the same kind of way that the serger blade would have kind of not come close. But if I were not recording, I'd try to get it a little closer. But that's not bad. So the cool thing about that is you sort of get a little overlock action there on the edge, the way that a serger would, and at the same time you've got that straight stitch for your seam. I kind of want to see what that looks like from that side. Look, I don't even see I do not even see the color, that dark colored thread coming through. I like it. That's a good choice. They're all good choices. Okay. All right. There are even 2 more options here. And if you don't have very many stitch options on your machine, then you may want to use one of these 2 choices. And one is to use the all-purpose thread in the top and then change your bobbin to woolly nylon. Now, this works in one of my machines, but not in all of them. So this is why you'd want to experiment with that. And woolly nylon is a thread that is stretchy. Let's go take a look. All right, so for example, woolly nylon is a thread that comes on a spool like this, and it's meant for sergers. Now, if you can see, when I relax it, it sort of gets fluffy, and as I pull it, it narrows out like that. Okay, so that allows it to have some stretch and some give, which can be beneficial even in a straight stitch on your machine, even though the primary purpose of this is for your serger. It covers, it would be for your loopers in your serger if you have one. So you would put this in the 2 loopers. But you see, it's because of that, the way that it fluffs out, it can be kind of a fun thing to use in your bobbin thread. So I've already got a couple of bobbins wound of that. You have to wind them by hand. So let's see here. So for example, this is a little bit of hand wound woolly nylon. And so what you would do is replace your all-purpose thread with this woolly nylon. What's that? Oh, this is my top thread. So in the same way, okay, now I got my top thread, and I'm just going to, for me, I have to do this. I have to do 1 crank on my hand wheel, and then I have to fish out that bobbin thread. There it is. Okay, and then it has to go under my presser foot. And I'll show you. I don't think this machine is going to like this very much, but I'll show you how I know that it's not going to work. Okay, so as I mentioned, for this stitch, you're just going to use a straight stitch. That's my number 1 stitch. Okay. Okay. Try to get all these little extra threads out of the way so that my machine doesn't want to eat them up. Okay, so then I'm just going to go straight stitch here. All right, my needle's up. Let's take a look. Okay, here's the front. It's just a straight stitch. And from the back, looks like that. And it doesn't look bad. Let's see if it stretches. Not nearly as much. There's a little stretch there, but not nearly as much. I do feel like this works well in another machine that I have that's more mechanical and less, not as fancy as this machine. But I already know that this machine has some great options. Okay, another option is to use something called Eloflex in the top and the bobbin thread. Okay, let's talk about that. Eloflex is available at your local fabric dealer. Specifically, this is available at Hobby Lobby. Looks like this. It is stretchable thread. It doesn't really look stretchable, but then when you pull on it, there is some give there. It feels pretty strong. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate that for you, but you can use that as top and bobbin thread, as I mentioned, and it should be pretty durable, and you use it in a straight stitch. So there's an option too. So you'd want to try that, or you can try some of mine if I remember to bring it, and then that may do the trick for you. I get the feeling that that stuff is good for, especially good for, say, workout clothes, that kind of thing that would have need to have a strong, stretchy stitch. Okay. So if you are dissatisfied with any of those options because they all create wavy stitches for you, here are two more things to consider. You could, first of all, use one of those options in addition to a walking presser foot, or you could use one of the options above with the help of Wonder Tape or a similar wash-away stabilizing tape, which you might have seen brought to class. So this, let's just take it one at a time. The walking presser foot, let's find. Okay, a walking presser foot looks like this. The idea is that it has little teeth on the bottom that pull the fabric from the top side, kind of like the way the feed dogs do from the bottom side. So one thing that can happen when you are sewing with either like really slippery fabric, something very lightweight or satiny, or something really thick, is that your machine doesn't really get a good grip on it. And so it can sort of slide through your machine or get hung kind of as the presser feet try to pull it, it sort of gets stalled out under there, or, and can create some ugly seams. So the walking presser foot, what it does is it will attach here and take place of your current presser foot. And it will pull from the top while your while your feed dogs pull from the bottom to give you a nice even feed. This can make you have prettier seams. If you're having some trouble with them being wavy, that might help. Now to do it, let's see if I can figure this out. I know that this does not work on this machine, so I'm just going to demonstrate to you how to put it on, but it will not. It won't work, and you'll see why. This particular machine needs something different. All right, I'm going to unscrew this presser foot. Okay. Now this little hook is going to go on the where this screw is. It's going to kind of go yep like that. Now there's a little black clamp here. It goes where that screw is. Oh, I almost got it. There we go. Okay, so gotta tighten that screw in. All right. So I've got this presser foot on. Oops, I missed it up there. I kind of wasn't paying close enough attention, and this should have clamped onto this bar, and it didn't. But I'm going to go ahead and show you why I know this won't work. When I lower my presser foot, it does not come all the way down. You see that? So there's no way it can grab my fabric. It just won't work. So you do need one that's going to work on your machine. This works on a different machine that I have. But then, once you got it on there, you will just stitch like normal. See, it can accommodate a zigzag because the opening there is for the zigzag stitch. It's as wide as a zigzag. And so that is, so that lets me know that I could choose a number of different stitches, and this walking presser foot could accommodate the movement of the needle, and that would be okay. Okay, just on a separate machine. All right. And also of some value to you could be this wash away Wonder Tape. Now what's so great about this is that, it's got some stuff on it, but it has an adhesive in it, so you can pull this off and then lay it along your seam line. And then once you do that, you peel off the backing, so it's got two sticky sides. And then you would fold your fabric however you want to. Let's say you're doing a hem. This is great for a hem because you can apply it to the bottom of your fabric and then peel off the other sticky layer so that you've got a side that now will adhere to another part, you know, wherever your fold is, wherever you're folding it up, it'll adhere in place until you can stitch right on top of it. Then it will wash away whenever you first launder this garment. So water soluble there. That's a great choice. So that if you put this on your seam and stitched it, I've never had a problem with my machine needle getting gummed up from it. But when you first try on this garment, it will not have any stretch in that seam because the adhesive is still in there. So you're going to have to launder it to get the full effect of it. But that's also a great option. It helps feed evenly through your machine without any bunching. Highly recommend. Okay. Hopefully this gives you an idea of what maybe your machine is capable of and the best stitches for your machine in order to handle knit fabric. With this many options, you definitely can find a way to sew yourself a t-shirt and get great results. Thanks for watching.